first you need to look at the people who are buying now, for sure.
The way I describe needs is a basic expectation of a product or service. So for example, for clothes, maybe I just need something to cover myself.
I am the founder of a company called Stitches of Faith, which is a Christian clothing brand. I'll start with the current challenges that we have. I wrote them down so that I don't forget. So we have sales and conversion, which we've built some awareness, but turning that into consistent sales has become a struggle. And then we have marketing, which is reaching and connecting deeply with our audience. It hasn't been effective enough. And then brand positioning. Many like Christian clothing brands or brands are just seen as casual or just mass market things. And our challenge is, establishing Stitches of Faith as a luxury Christian apparel that is, rooted in faith but aligned with luxury. And the reason as to why we do that is because we just don't get the money and it's just not for profit. It's also for sustainable impact.
Maybe my question would be who you are selling to, because you mentioned that you are currently struggling with the consistent sales. So maybe just to understand that profile.
Okay, so I'd say our primary target market is women who are 28 and above. I know it's a bit big, but yeah. And then our secondary market now comes to men and children. Yeah.
What kind of clothes do you make?
Okay, so we have t-shirts, we have hoodies, sweatshirts. Currently in production, we're doing sets, both the hoodie and the sweatpants, and then also looking to roll out college jackets.
All right. Maybe question for you. Around your challenges with the consistent sales as well as conversion. Have you tried talking to your customers just to understand, for example, like for those ones who've bought from you in the past and have bought repeatedly, would you say that you know why they've made that purchase?
Well, that's an interesting question, because when it was said today in the morning, I was like, I need to go back and do that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's something that's yeah.
Okay. So like Patricia was saying, there are different things that bring a community together. Yeah. And at the center of it is values. Yeah. So I see you have a very good positioning where you've said it's rooted in faith but aligned with luxury. I'd be curious to know how many 28 and above ladies do you have in the room? All right. Yeah, so I think what I'd say, it's very important to talk to your potential customers and even your existing customers, those who've bought from you, just to get a sense of, I usually like using 4 quadrants. You are talking about avatars, yeah? And when I look at an avatar, I usually like to put them in 4 quadrants. So the first one is what we call a need. And I think before I came, I heard that you guys are talking about needs. The way I describe needs is a basic expectation of a product or service. So for example, for clothes, maybe I just need something to cover myself. Yeah, that could be it. And then there's motivation. So motivation is the reason behind the purchase. So I can go into a store because I want to buy clothes, but there's an underlying reason behind why I want to buy a specific piece of cloth. So for example, like for Diana, you've seen that she's mentioned that she's in the Juakali sector. She needs something that's very comfortable for her day to day. She doesn't have to think a lot in terms of like, what am I going to wear? Maybe she's not going to do like a lot of makeup, but she needs clothes that will fit into her lifestyle and how she operates on a day-to-day basis. For Resian and I didn't get your name, and Anne, you've seen like maybe it's when they're lounging over the weekend, yeah, or when maybe they're going to meet with friends. So it's always good to understand for the target customer that you're going after, are you actually not only fulfilling the need, but the motivation behind why they would make that purchase. So it's always good to ask around that. And then the third one is aspiration. So when you think about aspiration, think about hopes and dreams. Where do they hope to be in the future? Yeah. So for me, I would imagine when I'm a bit younger, then probably in campus, that's when maybe I would wear a lot of hoodies, because probably my day is also like fairly free. I know for a fact, because I have sisters and I've had girlfriends in the past, that ladies spend a lot of money on clothes. Yeah. Sometimes even weekly. Yeah. So you just have to figure out what kind of clothes are they buying, and then how do you now tie that back into the luxury and the rooted in faith bit. Because if you're going to sell something and they're only going to wear it over the weekend, then that is also a good indicator in terms of like why your sales are not as consistent. Because probably if I'm wearing something once a weekend, it's going to take a lot of time before I replace it with something new. But if you're able to find somebody like Gaki, who is using it on a daily basis, then that could also potentially be a good customer. So needs, motivations, aspirations, pain points is important. And a pain point is an area of friction, unmet needs, or dissatisfaction. So for the other players who are already solving that need, what complaints do customers have? So for example, in faith-based, maybe it might be that they are not getting the clothes that maybe represent who they are ndani, sijui naweza semaje, like internally. Yeah, so maybe that could be a pain point. And then as you talk to your customers, you can now understand how you can able to bring that out in the designs that you're putting out. And the most important bit, I think, when it comes to, because these ones are also, they're good for targeting, because you're able to identify them in characteristics and target them even digitally. But the most important one I'd say is behaviors. Behaviors is where a business is built. If your business is able to mirror how your customer operates in their day-to-day life, then I think you'll have cracked a business model. So I think for you, what I would say is just talk to potential customers, current customers, and those who've also dropped and stopped buying from you. You'll be surprised at what you learn. Yeah.
My question is, how I'm assuming, based on the name and based on like pretty much everything else, that the positioning that is really important here is the purpose, right? The faith element. Especially in the beginning, try to pick one thing to be known for. Because if you do go faith-based and luxury, the challenge you're going to have is that you will be competing with luxury loungewear and faith-based clothing at the same time. So focus on one area, which I think is the area where you have the strongest community and the most aligned values. For me, that would be in the faith area. So really look at the Christian community as a starting point. Lean in heavily there, because again, you want to, I think, to Pat's presentation where she talked about community quite a bit, she also explained like the whole value of you know your people, when they have a sense of ownership is very different from when they feel like you might be here, you might not be here. You're 50-50. You have to jump in with both feet so that they can truly believe in everything that you're doing. So first thing I would say is, if purpose is the primary thing, then you're positioning heavily within the community first. And if you're positioning heavily within the community, then your efforts also need to go in that same space. I like that you mentioned that it's not just luxury for the sake of being pricey. there's purpose behind it, right? You said there's the sustainable impact and things like that, which means there's a story. That's the story that needs to come out. So it really needs to come out that what we're doing here is we're not just making clothes, we are also doing XYZ activity. If you want to support this, this is how we are able to do this. That connection needs to be really clear, especially for your first few customers. Now, to the point of first few customers, I want to add a layer to what Mark said. First, you need to look at the people who are buying now, for sure. You need to look at why they're not doing, but then you also need to take that extra step of, now that you've found a profile of someone who wears loungewear daily, and there are a few of them. I don't know why our creative people at the back didn't mention that they're very regularly. This is as formal as we are dressed. Yeah, so 364 days. Okay, minus 4 converges. 360 days. Most of our people, you might even find them in pajamas in the office. Yeah. Now, if you know creative industry, right, Juakali industry, etc., 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 you think those spaces. That's draw the Venn diagram. Here's space number 1. The people who can give me the maximum amount of profit are the people who wear the most of my clothes. Space number 2, the people who are most aligned with my purpose, which gives you a nice little Venn diagram there, a nice little overlap of people who are very clear on their faith. They want to express it. Now, then you have to go into behavior after that and start looking at what does that behavior manifest like? How do you narrow that down a little bit more? So the goal, I would say, is try to break it down as much as possible so that you know who your first 100 hardcore fans will be. I've seen you have Julie and a few other people on your page. I was trolling, but I'm seeing you have people like that. She's a really good example because she is in that space where she does wear a lot of loungewear and she is extremely connected in that community. Then you want to be able to build connections like that. And where you can't build them, where they're not already your customer, when you have samples, that's who you talk to. When you want to get feedback, that's who you talk to. Be very clear on how do I get into that person's life and how do I get into that person's space, and then how do I engage with that community until they accept me as one of their own. Because once you get those 100 people, that's where your next 1,000 people come from, and then you move from there. Also, just consider the 4 Ps as usual. Now that you know what your product is, look at your price point as well. If you are to say your price, you know your price, you've not said it, yeah? And you've heard what she said about how she treats her hoodies. Is she going to pay your price? Are you sure? How much are your hoodies? 3.5. How much do you buy your hoodies? Okay, so there you go. There's a nice little overlap. So your price is fine, which means then if she's clear and loud about her faith, she hasn't connected with your product. This is when you start pushing that. Because when you said luxury to me, I've seen luxury hoodies. Has anybody else seen luxury hoodie prices? Okay, cool. So I'm not alone. You're not priced luxury. It means your quality. So you might want to shift that positioning a little bit and just think, what we do here is we do really high quality design at a fair price, because that's a fair price. Yeah. So worth considering. I think the positioning bit, lean it a little bit more into the community, a little more into the purpose, and then audience-wise adjust that just a little bit, and you have a sweet spot. Because now you, even in terms of creators to work with, in terms of spaces to advertise, in terms of where to be present, you know exactly where you need to be and how you need to show up there.